I'm a Stone. It's the end of quarter three, and here's how I've grown as a critical reader throughout the first half of this semester. Here's my reading journal, but first I would like to present my new insights about myself as a critical reader and my understanding of literature and art. So, according to Nabokov, using your imagination is really, really crucial to being a good critical reader. When throughout like the first two quarters, I would just like memorize the plot or the scenes, and they would just like stick in my head of like the events that happen. When really what you're supposed to do is like imagine the scene in a very deep way and really get a better understanding of like what the character goes through. For example, in Mark Twain's book, Huckleberry Finn, um, he utilizes the first person point of view for a very, very great purpose. He wants his audience to experience what the protagonist is going through and and as what he goes through and story as it progresses as well. So Mark Twain's unique utilization of first person point of view with the book being written back in the 1800s, that was the point where it really helped me start using my imagination more in order to gain a better understanding of what's really happening throughout the story. And so my understanding of art and literature can be seen through the symbols, the major symbols of the novel. For example, for Huckleberry, Finn, and Jim, the Mississippi River being the ultimate symbol of freedom. That's like the true art of what is inside a novel. Because that symbol, the river, showed us the art of escaping freedom and entering a new world of like paradise. And also, what makes art is the creativity of the author when he or she is like to trying to send out a message or have an argument or opinion and give the audience something to understand or like have an argument to side on something about that. Also, William Shakespeare, he is really, really creative with his art in his piece Macbeth because of the way that he writes the story. It makes his audience or the readers, not audience, yeah, the readers, that's right. It makes the readers have an imagination like no other of like all the tragedies of murders and stuff. So it makes me, who struggles with literature, think outside the box with imagination and really picture what's going on, scene by scene. And so, a major writer is one who makes his or her audience or the reader think like a major reader. Like, think outside the box of what they're reading. For example, in Yellow Wallpaper, when the narrator, the woman, is like going through some type of very, very deep depression, I'm not saying the author is trying to make the reader relate to what the narrator is going through, but they want us to get like a better understanding and utilize our imagination and really see what they are going through, which is something as a reader is kind of hard to relate to because it's rare for me to get depressed, but it definitely the narrator here definitely helps me like imagine what it's like to go through depression, which I hopefully won't go through, but that's basically what a major writer does. It makes us really think and imagine what the protagonist goes through. And what can I say about art coming from art? I don't really know how to answer that question other than the author is doing his or her absolute best to be as creative as possible to prove a point or um, give the reader something to imagine, which is where um, my critical reading comes in. where I have to use my imagination to get a full understanding of what's going on instead of just reading and instead of just reading words and trying to figure out the plot, imagining actually what's going on will help me grow as a critical reader. And so, in reference to a major writer, what is a teacher, what is an enchanter, and what is a storyteller? And to my understanding, a teacher is one who gives out advice or something. For example, Nabokov, Prone, Calvino, Perrine. Those are all teachers because um, they guide you into helping you grow as a reader, just like you, Miss Stone. You're a teacher too. So that's what my understanding is of a teacher. I can consider Shakespeare as an enchanter because in Macbeth, his plot is really, really unique when he um, enchants us or writes about how Macbeth is really, really evil in trying to um, take over and be king by murdering um, his closest friends or murdering anyone just to get what he wants. That's an example of what an enchanter does. It's like using like some type of spell or magic ish to tell us a story of. It's different than what a storyteller is, and I'll get to that. But Macbeth's a great example of what an enchanter is. A storyteller is where using your imagination really comes into play here, especially with Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. That's a storyteller because um, of the adventures that Huck goes through, it makes us really imagine what it really is to probably be like him. It's a story. We're listening to a story that Mark Twain's telling us. As I've mentioned in first semester, reading plays in class, for example, Macbeth, I'm reading them together and like where everyone has their own line in the play is usually not best for me because it's kind of hard for me to focus on trying to understand what's going on in the play. I'm more comfortable like reading alone in a much quieter environment. But then as we were reading Macbeth, yeah, um, I've learned to use my imagination. Using my imagination is what was not using it is what was holding me back in not having a full understanding of what was going on, especially in Shakespeare's plays, because instead of just reading Macbeth in class when everyone else was, I've kind of learned how to use my imagination in a way where I'm imagining all these um, cruel murders and reasons why Macbeth was wanting to do all of this, and I saw through his plans in trying to take over, and that's how I've gained a little bit more comfort in reading in class and understanding Macbeth and Shakespeare's plays. It didn't take me as long as it did in Hamlet to like get a full understanding as a critical reader of what Shakespeare was trying to say in his plays. So to summarize quarter three, this journal conference, my understanding of what a critical reader is he or she uses his imagination to gain a better understanding of what is happening in the story. And a major writer, he or she does his or hers very, very best to be as creative as possible in order to make his or her point to the audience. And what makes art and literature is the critical reader's overall understanding of the creativity of what a major writer does. So basically, art is those two combined into one, where basically me understanding what's going on, for example, in Macbeth, me using my imagination to William Shakespeare's uniqueness and his way of telling writing his play. And I also know that I am never done learning how to grow as a critical reader, and hopefully that will show in this upcoming AP test and to finish out quarter four and high school in a very strong way and on a good note. Good night.